You know, there's a ton of times when fans just give up on young players without giving them a chance. Many rookies enter the NBA at like 19 or 20 years old, but we immediately expect them to make a huge impact, which is unfair to them. Most teams nowadays prefer to draft one-and-done players because they usually have a higher potential with more room to grow, as opposed to drafting juniors or seniors. But then those teams get impatient because their young players are not immediately good, so then they trade them. That kinda defeats the whole purpose of drafting them in the first place if we're just gonna be impatient. Not everybody is a LeBron James or Kevin Durant or Luka Doncic, who look like stars right out of the gate. Anyway, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and in this video, we're gonna take a look at 8 young NBA players who many fans gave up on but are now proving these doubters wrong. Alright, let's get started. Number 8, Jonathan Isaac. Now, out of every other lottery pick of the 2017 draft, Jonathan Isaac is probably the least talked about, even though he went number 6, one spot ahead of Lauri Markkanen. Part of it is because he plays in Orlando, and part of it is also because he was injured for most of his rookie season. Before entering the NBA, he drew some comparisons to Kevin Durant, which was pretty insane, because he was never a natural scorer. After a quiet rookie season with not much hype or expectations, Isaac has made a significant jump this season. He hasn't blown everybody away, but he's showing why he was the number 6 pick. He's averaging a modest 9 points and 5 rebounds a game, but defense is where he's made his mark. Isaac is a unique player in the sense that he's like a lanky, 6'10" jack-of-all-trades player, with no glaring strengths on offense, but he's occasionally shown flashes of potential. Will he ever be a 20 or 25 points per game scorer? Maybe not, but he has the tools to be a good offensive player. Number 7, Noah Vonleh. Vonleh was the 9th overall pick of the 2014 draft, drafted at just 18 years old. Over the past 5 years, he's been on 4 different teams. He signed a small, 1-year, $1.6 million contract with the Knicks because frankly, no other teams were interested in him. Even though he's only 23 years old, it looked like he was gonna quietly exit the NBA and be forgotten. So when the Knicks signed him, there weren't really any expectations. But with the Knicks this season, he's been a pleasant surprise. He's averaging career highs in points, rebounds, assists, and he developed a decent 3-point shot, which he didn't have at all when he entered the league. Now, 8 points, 8 rebounds a game, that's not crazy, but it's a significant improvement. In previous years, he barely looked like an NBA player, and although he still has his defensive lapses, he's gotten a much better feel for the game now. Now, obviously the Knicks are still awful, but Vonleh has been having an underrated breakout season, and he's bound to be in for a bigger contract in 2019 free agency. Number 6, Justice Winslow. I made a recent video talking about Winslow's transition from small forward to point guard, and it helped his game tremendously. Coming into the league, Winslow was touted as a defensive beast, and if he could just develop his offensive game, he could follow the same path as guys like Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. But then the injuries kicked in, a major shoulder injury in early 2017 and then a knee injury later that year. Because of those injuries, he came back slow and spent 2 seasons basically rehabbing and working his way back into shape. As a result of shoulder surgery, he had difficulty practicing his jump shot during the offseason, but now Winslow is playing the best ball of his career. Spoelstra decided that playing Winslow at point guard utilizes his greatest strengths: his court vision, his passing, and his explosive first step in the pick and roll. He just looks so much better at the point, and he looks like a natural point guard. Winslow is averaging career highs across the board, and with a healthy offseason under his belt, he now has a legit 3-point shot too. Number 5, Julius Randle. Now, Randle is an interesting case. He broke his leg in the first game of his NBA career, and when he got back, many Lakers fans were already getting impatient with him. After 4 seasons in LA, he showed steady improvement, but there were still glaring weaknesses in his game. Randle would get tunnel vision a lot, his off-ball defense was horrendous, and his turnover rate was absurdly high for a big man. It didn't help that he would always be the first guy to get criticized whenever they were losing, especially from former coach Byron Scott, who was particularly harsh on him and would bench him every time he made a small mistake. At the end of his Lakers tenure, he realized that he was no longer in the team's future plan, so he did not get an extension. They wanted to move on and save cap space. That's when the Pelicans swooped in. Randle said that, "I've never been in a situation where I gotta play with a player like AD. For me, I feel like it makes my job a lot easier. I can just go out there and do what I naturally do, which is play hard. Everything else works itself out because he takes so much pressure off of all of us." Although the Anthony Davis situation has gotten pretty dramatic, he still takes a lot of pressure off of Randle when he plays. Randle's now averaging a career-high 20 points a game, and he's only gonna get better from here. Number 4, Jahlil Okafor. Remember when we all thought Jahlil Okafor was a bust? Well, that was actually very recent. He was arguably the slowest, laziest defender we've ever seen. Now it looks like he's finally turning it around. It took a while. I mean, it's been 3 years since he had a significant role on any team, but now he does. While Anthony Davis was sitting out and hoping to get traded, Okafor rolled out of bed, played 35 minutes, and dropped 20 and 10. From January 21st to February 6th, he averaged about 18 points and 10 rebounds a game on 67% from the field, along with 2 blocks. Before, the main criticism of Okafor was his defense, or should I say, lack of defense. But now he's leading the Pelicans in rim protection, holding opponents to only 47% at the rim, an incredible number considering he's guarding other big men. That rim protection stat is even better than Rudy Gobert's 57% and DeAndre Jordan's 58%. Obviously, that doesn't mean Okafor is a better defender than them because he's only been doing this for a sample size of 2 weeks, and then he got injured. Despite being labeled as a bust for pretty much his entire career, he's quickly shedding that label, and hopefully he'll be able to maintain this success in the future. Number 3, De'Aaron Fox. Maybe it's a bit too early to say that we were wrong about Fox, but coming into the league in a very popular draft, Fox and the Sacramento Kings flew under the radar and his rookie season wasn't that impressive. Nobody expected him to make the jump that he did. This season, he's been arguably the best or second best player from the 2017 draft class, which is a complete surprise to everyone. In general, the Kings have been a huge surprise and are still in the playoff race. Fox wasn't selected to be an All-Star, but he will in the near future, maybe even next year. When talking about this drastic change from last season, Fox said, "I think last year, the difference was we didn't have an identity. We didn't know how we wanted to play, we didn't know what we wanted to do. And this year, we know we're trying to run, we're trying to get the ball up and down the court, and we're trying to get as many possessions as possible." It's this new, fast-paced style where the Kings have found success, and they've continued to build on it through good trades and a better culture. Number 2, Zach LaVine. There was a time when we all thought LaVine, Wiggins, and Towns would be the next great trio. 3 young, athletic, up-and-coming stars who were the model of what a rebuild should look like, and they were poised to take over the league. But then LaVine tore his ACL and then got traded and then spent last season getting back into the groove. ACL tears are generally pretty bad, but nowadays it's easier to recover from it. However, LaVine was always a guy who relied on his athleticism and sheer leaping ability to score. For these guys, ACL tears can be brutal and sometimes he might not ever recover. That's why when he signed a 4-year, $80 million contract last summer, it was a questionable signing. The Bulls were giving a ton of money to a guy who just had a disappointing season, and his career wasn't going anywhere. But this season, he's proving everyone wrong. LaVine is having a breakout season, averaging 23, 4, and 4, and it looks like he could be a legit number 1 option. He's scoring at a much higher volume than in Minnesota, but he's still able to maintain the same efficiency. That's impressive. And number 1, D'Angelo Russell. In his early years with the Lakers, Russell was labeled as being immature and inattentive. It was true though, he had his fair share of controversy, including the time when he was filming his teammate Nick Young. Both Byron Scott and Magic Johnson stated that Russell's immaturity was the reason why they traded him to the Nets. They were able to get back the 27th pick of the 2017 draft, which turned into Kyle Kuzma, so it wasn't a terrible trade. And now, Russell has become an all-star and he's leading the Nets to the playoffs much faster than we all expected. He's having a career year in three-point shooting, a career high in win shares, box plus-minus, and a career low in turnover rates, which was an issue early on. After that horrendous trade between the Nets and Celtics, we didn't think the Nets would recover this quickly, and a large part of that has to do with D'Angelo Russell silencing his doubters. Anyway, that's all folks, those were 8 players who many of us were wrong about. The majority of fans had no idea they would bounce back like that, and most of them were left for dead. Who are some other players who have done the same thing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.